Please rise and salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Superintendent will please call the roll for the regular school committee meeting of April 27, 2022.
Ms. Chisholm?
Yes.
Ms. Cormier?
Present.
Ms. Crowley?
Present.
Mr. Kissel?
Here.
Mr. Lipset? Here. Mr. Mulrennan?
Present.
Dr. Wilson?
Here. Just reminding everybody, by appearing or speaking at this meeting, you are agreeing to be recorded. Welcoming representative from the City Council here tonight. Thank you. Okay, first up is approval of minutes. 4/12/22.
Motion to approve.
Second. Any questions or comments on the minutes? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Next up, 4/19/22 minutes.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, any questions or comments on those? Motion to approve. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, great. Next, we'll open it up for public comment. Just come on up, and if you please give your name so that our recording secretary can do that, and welcome.
Thank you. Julie Cotton. So a brief thing, but I did type it up, so I messed it up. So, but don't worry, it's not going to be too long. Hello, I'm Julie Cotton, parent of 2 elementary-age kids and a soon-to-be kindergartner, and I'm also the vice president of Woburn's Special Education Parent Advisory Council, CPAC. I appreciate our school committee and administration's work so far in this budget process. We've had a lot happening the past 2 years, and despite this, you were given the same directive that you get every other year from the mayor's office to maintain no more than a modest budget increase, and it seems you've done so successfully. I'm hoping there's no last-minute requests from the mayor's office to further reduce the budget, as there have been in the past, and I'm hoping there's no desire to further trim the budget as it stands now, as the items listed on the budget are critical components of the quality education Woburn strives to provide. Cuts to teaching staff, technology, content specialists, or curriculum leads to the degradation of Woburn's ability to compete with other academic institutions. There are a number of families in Woburn who've traveled a long way to become members of our community, and it's our responsibility to ensure that their children, who are our children, have equitable access to a high-quality education, which many of them are navigating while also learning a new language in a new place. Cuts to EL reduces equity and shows a lack of commitment to ensuring all of Woburn's children are able to participate in a meaningful education. I'll add here that LPAC, which is our English Learner Parent Advisory Council, has grown to become a fantastic resource you don't find in many communities, and that's something Woburn should be really proud to have. In addition to reducing equity and inclusion, cuts to special education can also lead to civil rights violations and lawsuits. Reducing paraprofessional staff who help preserve a manageable classroom infrastructure in special ed environments that require low student-teacher ratios places additional strain on already burned-out special ed teachers. Whatever you think about the past 2 years, teacher burnout has become an acute, widespread problem, and teachers are in fact leaving the profession in increased numbers right now. Separately, cuts to special education leads to challenges with fulfilling contractual obligations, like providing IEP services, which leads to lawsuits and placement of students at 6-figure a year out of district schools to meet our legal obligations to those students. That's 6 figures a year per student. If you start picking apart administrative positions, you end up stealing from our district's ability to operate smoothly. Without adequate staffing, the cogs of the machine are slowed and administrators end up bogged down with minutia, unable to focus on the critical work in front of them. Please keep all of this in mind as you review the budget tonight and consider the critical nature of all the pieces that together create the high quality education all Woburn's children deserve. Thank you.
Thank you. And if you want, you can leave your printed copy, and
Sure.
she can put it verbatim into the minutes.
Absolutely. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you. Thank you for coming and speaking. Anyone else like to speak? Well, thank you. Now, next up is our student representative, Sophia. And she unfortunately couldn't be here in person, but...
Hi, Sophia.
Hello.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. So you're up on screen, and it's time for you to do your presentation. Welcome.
Alright, thank you for having me. Alright, I will start off with upcoming events. So, on April 28th, there is a job fair from 1 to 2:30 p.m. at the high school. And It is open to all students who are 16 and plus. On April 28th, Middlesex Community College is coming to the high school. And for any seniors who are interested in attending, they will have the opportunity to complete an online application, and they will be accepted into the Middlesex Community College incoming freshman class. On April 30th, there's Tanner Fest. May 2nd through May 13th, AP exams will be taking place. May 6th, sophomore semi is happening from 7 to 10 p.m. On May 9th, term 4 progress reports are going out for seniors only. May 13th through May 15th, the school musical is happening. May 17th and May 18th, Math MCAS is happening for grade 10. On May 18th, it's all school awards night from 7 to 9 p.m. May 19th and May 20th, internship and passion project presentations are due. From May 20th to May 25th, senior class final exams will take place. On May 20th, Spectrum Community Gala is taking place from 5 to 10 p.m. May 21st, the Hall of Fame event tickets are on sale at Ed Foundation website. On May 25th is College Decision Day, and this is for seniors. On May 26th is Promenade and Prom. May 31st, the seniors have graduation rehearsal at 9 a.m. On June 1st, it's Senior Class Day. Also on June 1st, it's Scholarship Night for grades 12. On June 2nd, Senior Six Flags trip. On June 3rd, it's graduation at 6 p.m. for the seniors. On May 7th and June 4th, SATs will take place at the Woburn Memorial High School. On June 6th, there will be a civics showcase and Rho Kappa induction. On June 7th, Student Government Day Lunchathon is happening. And on June 8th, Student Government Day is happening. And the current events at the Woburn High School is today, a team from Oregon visited the high school to see how the BRYT program runs. The program at Woburn High School is held in high regard by those that oversee programs in schools across the country. Hats off to Miss Merrill and Miss Garrigan for their great work to support students and families. This week, 13 students attended the International Deca competition in Atlanta. Thank you to Ms. Keenan for advising the very successful Deca program. Also, the Key Club successfully held their second blood drive, which was held for community service hours, and this happened on April 6th. Students participated in the Seal of Literacy testing on April 6th and 7th, and so far 27 students have earned their seal. Over 200 seniors are participating in the Senior Internship or Passion Project, which started on April 11th. Also, the annual Lift Up took place on April 13th, and it will be released during Senior Week. The Best Buddies program held an amazing prom for students in the program at Rural High School on April 14th. Fun was had by all. Thank you to Ms. Stone and Ms. Morgan for making this happen. And lastly, all our athletic teams are doing very well in the spring season.
Wow,
Thank you.
Wow.
thank you.
I don't know about that baseball team, though. I don't know. Anyways. Any questions from the committee? No. Thank you very much for thing, and hope you enjoy the last month and a half or 2 months of school, and we'll see you in a few times. Okay. Thank you very much. Have a good evening. You're welcome to stay.
No questions, you got off easy.
Thank you for having me.
All right,
All right, thank you.
good night.
Okay. So next up is reports, presentation of the superintendent and staff, but I think I might be willing to entertain a motion to suspend the rules and move the fine arts presentation. Second? Have a second?
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. So we'll get the fine arts people, they can go home early.
So,
That works for you, okay?
oh yeah, yeah. Very timely, right? Time for Tanner Fest, right?
Yep.
So easy. I gave you, what, 6 slides?
Thank you. Excited to hear all the exciting things that are going on in our
Sit
fine
where you
arts
want.
program. Matt, you want to do an intro?
Yeah, so just as means of introduction, Sue Tifo's the Fine and Performing Arts Curriculum Coordinator, and joined by members of her staff and a student, right, to talk about Tanner Fest, presumably, and all the events that have occurred and will occur in the Woburn Public Schools. So,
Would you like us to all introduce ourselves?
sure.
Okay.
My name is Steve Turcott.
I'm Jack Tully.
Susan Tifo.
Noah Thomas.
I'm Meghna Somaraj. I'm a student at Woburn Memorial High School.
So I'm
Thank
going to
you.
start off, and then they're going to have their little presentations. We have witnessed in the Visual and Performing Arts Department student spirit, passion, and excitement since I last presented to you. And this has happened even during COVID. And you're probably asking why. Well, it's simple. It is due to the support and funding from the Woburn Public School System district-wide administration, the staff, the school committee, and the community of Woburn. You have given the students a place to call home, a family for those who love the arts. On behalf of the department, I wanted to thank you so much for listening and believing in the arts. Because you remember 3 or 4 years ago, I came here asking for a lot of staff and a lot of programs. So tonight, I wanted to publicly introduce and thank 2 new teachers who I am proud to have in our department. Mr. Steve Turcott, he is middle school band director, 5th grade instrumental teacher, youth band co-director, and high school assistant band director. I have a long speech here. Steve is a wonderful and caring team player who works with Mr. Jack Tully. When recently visiting an elementary school, I spoke to several students who were walking into Mr. Turcott's instrumental class. They were carrying these large instrument cases with them. And I said, "Are you really excited to go to lessons?" And one student replied, "Yes, I love those lessons. Mr. Turcott is such a cool teacher. You can tell he loves his job." And let me tell you, that made my day after that, hearing that. He is also a professional drummer, and he goes above and beyond every single minute to make sure that every student enjoys playing an instrument. Mr. Noah Thomas, he wears many hats. Theater teacher, audio-visual director, musical director, and drama coach. I feel Shakespeare's speech, "All the world's a stage," must have been written for Mr. Thomas, as I personally think he lives on the auditorium stage. He is a kind-hearted and devoted teacher. When I asked his students, and you didn't know this, but I did, about the theater program, they expressed that Mr. Thomas has given them a voice and that he has an open conversation policy with them. This was evident when he encouraged them to produce a student-written play, The Littlest Things. And after the play, the student writers held a question and answer session, and I know some of you were there, and it was apparent that the students were extremely proud and passionate about their work. Both Mr. Thomas and Mr. Turcott both started as part-time teachers, but I'm telling you, they worked full-time plus. And now they have become officially full-time teachers. They work tirelessly to build our theater and our band programs. Just like Mr. Tully, they are dedicated, hardworking, and most of all, which I get very emotional about, they are so kind and they are such great team players. And we are blessed to have all 3 gentlemen. I am very blessed to have them in my department. So as part of our presentation tonight, I have a little brief video, and then each one of them is going to give a little presentation so that you get to see it. So I think you can go to the next slide, which says thank you.
Oh.
And then the next one is a little video. I don't know, we can just move over a little bit. It's just a 40-second video. So the next slide is promoting our two big events that are coming up. So you can go to you have to close.
I know, I'm trying.
You have to close out of that, yeah. There you go. So, go back one more. There you go. So this Sunday, this Saturday,
pressure
we
here.
have a big TANF. This Saturday, we have our big TANF Fest event. We originally had planned this prior to COVID, so this is the first time K through 12, everything is going to be represented. And then our big school musical is May 13th and 14th, which is coming up, which it appeals to everybody, Percy Jackson. And the next slide we have here, it deals with our art department. On June 4th, we will be displaying banners. They did this about 3 or 4 years ago, but we produced over, I would say, 3,000 pieces of artwork that are being selected by the Historical Society to be made into banners, and some of them will also be placed at City Hall. And then the next slide introduces Mr. Jack Tully and Mr. Steve Turcott. Yeah, I'll move over to Steve.
All right, thank you to the members of the school committee and administration for allowing us to come speak about the band and theater program today. And the philosophy that we really have been following is that the Woburn Public Schools band program is one sequential program from the moment you join the program all the way through high school, through graduation, and hopefully beyond graduation, you're a part of this community. One organization. And I think Steve can talk a little bit more about that.
So to that end, well, first of all, thank you for your kind words. That was very nice. But to that end, we've been focusing on consistent instruction from school to school, grade level to grade level, and throughout the band program. Routines, warm-up, structure, repertoire, and curriculum are all aligned and appropriately leveled and adapted to meet every student and each ensemble's needs. Our philosophy is that students work best when they're working collaboratively, and everything we do is group and team-oriented. Students still learn and improve their individual skills, but more importantly, they have a consistent and reliable opportunity to grow, achieve, and positively contribute to what I would say is a bigger picture or a song, I guess. We created a youth band a few years ago, and this year we have 58 students. They represent every school in the district and every grade from 5 to 12. So to pick up on the idea of a trajectory that you can see where you can travel in the band program. But they all play together in one band. Not only do our students get to experience what it's like to play music in a large ensemble, they can also see that they're part of a broader supportive community of band learners within Woburn. One of the things that we like to reinforce is that regardless of where a student is on their band journey, their contributions are valued, important, and make us all better, regardless of how many notes they might know at that moment or how fast or high they can play.
Yeah, and additionally, Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction, Courtney Young, worked with the content specialists and the elementary principals to construct a new schedule for our elementary school lessons. So now they are taking place during wind block. And this improvement to our program increases our instructional time and our ability to provide better instruction to all the elementary schools. We've received tremendous support for the band program from every single principal and assistant principal in the district, and it really has been a team effort. We have 74 fifth graders enrolled in lessons, and we believe this is going to lead to a very large increase in our participation in both middle schools. And it sounds kind of silly, but our slogan is in the Woburn Public Schools, we band together, and we're doing just that. And so we just wanted to say thank you to the members of the school committee and administration. So, thank you. And then we have Meghna here, who is a student, and if it's okay, she can move over here to say a few words.
Musical chairs. Get it?
Who's writing the carry?
So, hello everyone. My name is Meghna Somaraj. I'm a sophomore at Woburn Memorial High School. I started my band journey when I was in 5th grade, and I just want to say thank you for everything, because band has really shaped who I am today. I really love seeing how we've grown and improved together, and it's really just such a rewarding experience. I have a younger brother. He's in 5th grade currently, and he started his band journey a few months ago, maybe. And it's just really amazing to be able to partake in youth band with him, because it's our only opportunity to ever play together while I'm still in school. So it's just really nice to see how he's growing and how he's developing and how his skills are improving from, a squeaky saxophone to playing real pretty notes now. And I really see my younger self in him. And I see how he's growing, and it reminds me of myself, and it's just a really rewarding experience. And I think I speak on behalf of all my other band members when I say everything you've done has helped us so much, and yeah, thank you for everything.
Thank you.
I'm going to have Mr. Thomas on the side with him.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think you dropped your mask.
Too close. All right, hello everyone. Like everybody else, like Jack and Steve, I'm here to say thank you also. Those were definitely touching words that Sue gave at the beginning there. And I think if I just introduce myself a little bit. So again, I'm Noah Thomas, and I was hired about 3 years ago. And at that time, I was a part-time teacher, and I think if you asked me at that point, what is it that you're hoping to accomplish? I have these 3 words that I kept saying to everybody, and I'm someone who's pretty bad at mission statements in general, but I think it's always been very clear to me what I hope to accomplish in coming to a school district and coming to Woburn to start a program. And those 3 words that have really stuck with me and kind of driven me from that point to this point are elevate, generate, and build. And I couldn't think of a 3rd word that ended in 8. But the elevate part is to elevate the performing arts program, to elevate the theater program that's at the high school, to elevate the status, to elevate the the quality of the productions, everything like that, to generate interest among students and in the community, and to build a community for students that are there. And so that's kind of the way that I measure my own progress, I guess. And one of the things that happened pretty early on is a move from 2 separate organizations. There's a drama club, there's a tech crew. They're doing their own thing, they're having fun, but one of the big pushes for me was to take those 2 separate organizations, put them together, and move to something that I would call a company model. And so in terms of numbers, we moved from a couple of clubs of about 60 students to this year 130 students in this company model. So we've done a couple of productions this year. We're in the midst of a big production right now, the Lightning Thief, the Percy Jackson musical. For starting in the fall, I led a group of students, student writers, to write an original piece, and a number of you saw that, and I was really glad to see you come out and experience that. 40 students were involved in that. We took that to a competition in March. And then now we're fully into the Lightning Thief musical, and we got a cast of about 50, crew of probably more than 20, so we got about 70 students working on that production. Really big, ambitious. There's a set on stage. We keep moving it on and off stage to accommodate the other groups as we
Youth band.
to accommodate really Tanner Fest, that we're coming up to. But so I mean that's kind of like a very brief snapshot, and I guess to be to reflect on the last couple of years. I think even though it seemed like a crazy time, I was hired in 2019. And then in that following spring, the pandemic hit, and it seemed like kind of a crazy time to be trying to start a theater program. But the wild thing to me is that even over that time, the program grew because the desire and the enthusiasm is there in the student body. And so I think a lot of what I've seen my job over the past couple of years is doing is just trying to harness and focus the energy and enthusiasm and really the talent, because there's a tremendous amount of talent that students in this city have. And so to kind of channel that and focus it into these productions, that's kind of the way I see my job. And so you'll see a preview of that if you come to Tanner Fest this Saturday. You'll see a couple numbers from the upcoming musical. It's still in rehearsal, so it'll be even more spectacular when you actually see the full production. But I wanted to come and say thank you, and really, again, this wouldn't have been possible without Sue pushing for these programs to happen, and without you listening and saying, hey, we think the arts are important, and let's put some oomph behind it. So thank you. Yes. Okay.
So, of course, we're moving on. Future. So here's my wish list as we go forth. I would like to start a dance program at the high school. There's a big interest there. We would like to build the chorus program like we did 4 or 5 years ago with the band program, so the focus would shift to chorus. And we are working on, actually for next year, the 4th grade instrumental program, because it would fit in with the wind block, and we've worked their schedule so that would actually help them a lot to build it, which most districts do have a 4th and 5th grade kind of instrumental program. So that's my wish list. We'll see what happens. I'll come back next year and see what happens. But I have one more little slide. So this one here, it just talks about how the arts allow students to develop skills that make them tenacious, confident, passionate, team-oriented, and creative problem solvers who always look at the world differently. And, Courtney always will hand me a job, and I look at it a certain way, and that's why she gives it to me, because I don't look at it a normal way. We in the arts, look at it a different way. So thank you so much. I sincerely appreciate you and the funding that you've given our department. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think we'll probably have a few questions. Start with Colleen.
Thank you. I really appreciate all of this. My former life was in the arts, so clearly these are all me, these things here. And I remember the two of you, before I joined this committee, would work on things together and just do, and the way that you come about it was obvious that you both had strengths that led to great things. So I really appreciate everybody coming here. Mr. Thomas, I remember the other production that was during the pandemic, the kindergarten. Yeah, which I thought was great, and and it was great that you guys were able to work through all this and do your best with it. So that's really fantastic. Meghna, are you saxophone also, as your brother is, or?
My brother plays saxophone, I play flute.
Excellent. Excellent. And Mr. Thomas, I would suggest Invigorate if you need another 8.
I got
that one's free of charge.
Colleen, I have a better one. Motivate.
Yeah, there you go. Well, I think there's
nothing wrong with a 4-word slang.
Perhaps innovate.
You didn't know that was coming.
Listen, I'm good for more than commas, so. And thank you.
Thank you. Anything else, Colleen?
No, that's great.
Andrew?
We've been talking a lot this year about student social emotional health, about the needs of our kids coming out of the pandemic, and it occurs to me that we talk a lot about sort of direct social emotional supports, but we haven't really talked a lot about the role that the arts play in that. So I was hoping you might talk a little bit about how you see music and theater and fine art and dance and everything that your department does or will do as something that also supports student mental health, student emotional health going forward.
I'll just make one quick comment on during the pandemic. What did everybody turn to? In my house, knitting, painting, crossword puzzles, listening to music, doing things that they normally probably would not do because we all slowed down. And there were puzzles that people couldn't even purchase. There were paint kits that I was trying to get from Walmart and I couldn't get them. But I know that the arts, it's a therapy in alone when people do ceramics and painting and stuff like that. And I see it when I walk through the auditorium, in the band room, in the chorus room. They've created families. There are separate families going on, and then we're one big family. And there are kids that really needed this, and I'll let them speak to it for the social and emotional.
Yeah, well, just the arts and social and emotional support and learning, they go hand in hand. We spend as much time thinking about, we teach music, but we teach a lot more than music. It's a place that's a sanctuary. It's a place to, you can put differences aside when you're all working towards one goal. So it's a place where kids are on a team and they have a common goal. And so I think it supports social and emotional learning, 100%. And it's a big part of what we do, certainly.
Yeah, I'll try to project at this. I think, I think about emotional health on a pretty regular basis when it comes to the role of a theater program in a community. And so if you take, I think the biggest example is really the production that we just came from, which was the student-written piece called "The Littlest Things Feel Like They're It's a 10-word title. The littlest things feel like they're going to kill us, and that line was taken directly from something that a student actually said in one of the interviews. So this show is something that was built from actual interviews with real students and actually faculty members as well, and centered on something fairly broad. What is your experience of anxiety? What's your experience of depression? And so the whole conceit of the show was like, what if anxiety and depression were actually sort of embodied and we're out there like making people disappear with this idea of like, rumors go through the school, somebody is missing, somebody goes missing, like, oh, I haven't seen that kid for a week or 2 weeks, like, where did they go? It's this idea that what if there was actually a person who was, stealing these people? And so I think that right there, just that show, that production ended up with the 10 students who were writing it, they got to they got to investigate what, a lot of things about mental health, and then to actually act in it. I know there are certain students who were part of the show who actually the show, the roles that they had were really became important to them because they related a lot to their own experiences, and they really could relate to them, and it helped them sort of grow and not get over what they were going through, but kind of process some of the things that they had gone through in the last couple of years. And so I think that arts in general is really important for emotional health. But I think there, of course I'm the theater guy, so I'm going to say like theater has a unique power to help people learn empathy, to grow that sort of those empathetic muscles that don't get flexed very often, I think. As soon as you step into someone else's shoes, then you start experiencing life from their perspective, and that kind of perspective taking, I think, is diminishing more and more as we turn sort of inwardly and turn to our mobile devices and turn to social media. And so I think, theatrical performance and acting and that kind of discipline, I think it's an important thing that actually opens that potential for empathy back up in a lot of ways.
I mean, I'm a former theater guy myself, so I'm with you on that. If my wife were here, she'd be talking about the benefits of band. She was a band kid. And I was struck especially at that performance by the student question and answer at the end, and the amount of confidence that the student writers and the student performers were displaying, answering tough questions about a tough subject. So I thought that spoke really, really highly of the program. And I think as we we're headed towards discussion of a budget in an upcoming agenda item. I mean, I think what we're seeing here, I think we really need to focus on this. This committee fought for expanded arts. This committee fought for weekly art and music in our schools. This committee fought for a theater program. This committee fought for a band program, right? We have a student here telling us how important it is to her little brother, to her community. We have to be able to put those faces on the money that we're spending, especially when we're dealing with a difficult budget. So I think it's great that we're able to have you here to remind us of what our money does and how far it can go, echoing long beyond MCAS scores and graduation rates. Right? This is important. So thank you.
Thank you.
All set?
Well spent.
Okay. Ellen, I'll go with Ellen. Yeah.
So I just, arts are still sort of fairly new in Woburn. We're still developing the program, so all of you sitting here tonight, you're changing the fabric of Woburn Public Schools and the community as a whole. I'm just so deeply appreciative of that, because I know that that's not always easy. And I just want to state that, there's a certain element of learning that you get through music, through art, that you just don't get with math as you go, right? I'm like speaking to the choir.
We're still working on that part.
But I'm just so excited to see what you do in the future. Sue, I think you're amazing. And Meghna, you're just so articulate and intelligent. It's just a joy to have you here tonight. And I hope your mom takes pictures of you after.
She did.
Because she's fantastic. Thank you. But just overall, this is just so positive, and I'm just so happy to have you here. And I'm really excited about the 74 fifth graders that are learning band. Good things to come. So thank you all.
All set?
Yes.
Pat?
I think that it's great that you give kids an avenue that they wouldn't normally have. So I think it's important that wherever the kids find their second home, they have one. So it's nice that we're opening those gates and doors for them. And it seems like this is a group that's very caring and loving and truly do what's best for their students. So I thank you for all of that. That's very important. And on the 13th and 14th, what are the times for the...
Yeah, so there are two 7 p.m. performances, and then on the Saturday there's a 2 p.m. and a 7 p.m. So it's 7 p.m. on Friday, and then 2 p.m. and 7 p.m. on Saturday.
No, why don't you explain so that because this is being broadcast, the QR.
All right, so if you see posters around town or links on social media, so all the posters have a little QR code that you can just point your phone camera at and tap on the link there. That takes you to the specific page for our Lightning Thief production. On that page, there's also a link where you can buy tickets. So ticket prices, so that you hear it from me, and I'll repeat it through social media and everything. Instead of putting it on the poster, we just felt like it was easier and more streamlined to just put this link here. But any student can get a ticket for $5. If that is an issue, then they should just talk to me, because somebody will sponsor them, or we'll figure out a way for that student to get there. There's a senior and teacher discount of $10. So if you're a Woburn teacher or if you're a senior, you can see the show for $10, and adults are $15.
Say senior, you mean?
Senior, I don't remember exactly.
Oh, we're not high school senior.
Not high school senior. Not high school senior.
So that's $10, Pat. paper.
Oh, yeah. So actually, we just sent out a contest for the elementary schools and for the middle schools, where you can nominate a student and they get entered to be in a raffle to win 2 free tickets to the show. So every one of the elementary schools is doing this, and both the middle schools, 2 students from each middle school, 1 student from each elementary school, and they get to bring themselves and a guest. And the idea is like, are you a hero? So you nominate the heroes who kind of are good examples. So it's promotion for the show, but it's also like, positive, sort of positive reinforcement in the community. So.
Great. It's not just Venmo for us old people, is it? Because I'll get
No.
the $10 ticket, but I just got to make sure. Do you take cash? When I get
Yeah,
this Boston God, we can get that
So you can get online.
$2 bills.
You can come to the.
That could be $1.
I don't know how. Honestly, I don't know how the online ticket sales are going to go. We're definitely selling tickets right now for 3 performances. So maybe don't wait too long. But if you want to reserve one, just contact me, and I can reserve one too.
I just want to mention one thing. So a lot of people don't understand what Tanner Fest is about. It's an open house, free community for the whole entire community, and it showcases K through 12, all our performing art, all our art. We are going to have interactive activities all the way from elementary to middle to high school events. So we'll have an instrumental petting zoo, so kids can go in and try instruments. And there will be a whole lineup that I will send out to everybody on Friday. It's a digital program, so you'll see the lineup and all the write-up and all the information on that.
Great. Okay.
Thank you.
All set, Mr. Chisholm?
Yep.
Anybody else? Mr. Mike?
Good afternoon. Good evening, folks. Thanks again for coming out. Great arts program at Woburn High School. I see you wearing your marching band shirt tonight. It's you can answer, or Mr. Tully can. Is it ever going to come back? I know we had a little lapse there for certain reasons, but where are we with the marching band and the performances and getting out on the road again? I know you guys did a great job traveling afar. And the competitions and whatnot, not just the in-house ones, Jack, competition-wise.
Yeah, I mean, we have been traveling and we're back on the road. This past fall, the marching band did what's called the New England Scholastic Band Association, which is a circuit of competitive marching bands, and we competed at 4 events. And so we did a show in Wakefield, Billerica, Dartmouth, which was a long drive, and then finals took place in Reading. We ended up in 4th place in our division at marching band finals, and it was the highest score ever by our band. So our band is coming back and on the road to be more competitive and just exciting for all the kids, and we're happy to see it. So
I think now that we're past certain establishments and certain programs that we'll be working with, not just in the classroom, I just want to explain some of the programs that you all did during COVID to make these things happen. And I saw you one time spread out in the high school auditorium and trying to do your thing. We heard stories about kids couldn't use wind instruments and they, all the precautions, and we kind of got over all that, and here we are today. So I just want to applaud you for your efforts there, just to do all of that and still be doing what you did virtually for the community.
yeah, it certainly was not your typical couple of years. So there were all sorts of guidelines about how far apart you could be. So we whatever we did, we did so we could continue this for the students and make it happen on some level. We did all we could, and so some of our performances were videoed and virtual, and we took individual videos from kids did it at their houses, and we meshed them all together into one, and we did what we could.
It was all about trying to keep our students connected, because they were on little islands, watching Netflix and logging into classes. So what could we do? And we tried pretty much as everything we could. I mean, it was great. We had these drop-in sessions that were like an hour and a half long every day, and kids could come in and hang out and play, and it was like, okay, do you want to lead? I'm going to mute myself and play. Play along with them. And then, all right, I'm going to lead. I'm going to play trombone. I felt a little bit like Bugs Bunny with my instruments. But it was cool. And sometimes, you know, the kids just had questions. They wanted to know, like, well, what's going to happen? Are we coming back? Like, what? You know, and I was like, I don't know. But let's play some music.
They created a family, though. I commend them. All of them have created families, including Mr. Gilberti with the chorus. It's amazing just to walk through their rooms to see how much they, and you can speak about this, right? Yes. And how wonderful it is.
Nice.
Yes, would you like? Of course. The mic is yours.
Thank you. I know we don't say this a lot to you, Mr. Tully, but one thing I'd like to add is thank you so much for just letting us continue playing, even through all the hardships, having to put your mask on and stick your flute through the side and barely being able to make sound. We made sound and we played, and that's something that I think helped me through being remote so much, because I never lost my touch with my band family and the music, and it just made me happy every day to go to band during when we were at home. So thank you.
Great. Any other questions? Well, I want to thank you on behalf of the committee. I do want to commend, a lot of this was inspired by citizens in Woburn reaching out to the committee and emphasizing the importance that they felt for the fine arts. And I think that was really crucial in getting this things going. So I do want to commend all the people that reached out. The other thing, I was just going to suggest, you're talking about programs for chorus and dance. And I think one of the things that might help that, I know it helps with the band, is people see the band at civic events in the city outside of the school. And so I think if we can think about how we can, have the chorus, how we can have dance be integrated into the civic activities, I think that really helps, because then people that don't have kids, they're saying it, and then they expect it every year. And so it reinforces this idea of having things in the school. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming to speak. So thank you. All right. Okay. Make a motion, we return to the regular order of business?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye. No. Mr. Dunkley is not here tonight because we had previews for what was happening with the budget, and I didn't want to have him spend his evening here lamenting his lost position. But so we're going to go to part B, FY23 presentation. And what I wanted to just talk to the committee and to the public is the superintendent and Mr. Alcanada and Ms. Young have been meeting with the mayor for a number of months now. And over the last couple of weeks since we since we had our last meeting, there's been another few meetings. And during those meetings, talking to the mayor, we've reached his number of 3.75% increase. He expressed concern from the city side because, as you all know and the public may not know, when we hire individuals, those individuals, we pay their salaries, but the health benefits are paid on the city side of the budget, so it's outside of our budget. And he indicated that, he had set aside a certain amount of new positions in the school department. We've come in with more than that, and he's concerned about the city side of that. Also, he did express the concern that Ms. Chisholm mentioned about, integrating these positions into the budget after the ESSER funds that we're using are going. So the superintendent and Mr. Alcanada have met with the mayor, worked on some things. We're still not there yet, and so Mr. Alcanada will tell us where we're at, and we can have discussions. And as I mentioned to the committee, I think we're going to have another meeting next week. Okay. So, Mr. Alcanada?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sorry.
So, if you could put the, as Dr. Wells had indicated, we are at 3.75%, which is a $73.273 million budget. But after various conversations with the mayor, we began to find areas that we could cut from that amount. On Monday, I believe it was Monday morning, the Finance Committee met, and we presented a number of proposed cuts to the Finance Committee, and they made, so far they've made these choices, which we know will be the first step. There will have to be additional cuts. So we cut approximately $558,000 off the budget. The way we did that was we reduced the sped transportation by $150,000. We plan to reduce the innovation coaches in the curriculum department from 5 to 3, which will save about $114,000. We eliminated the assistant director of facilities for $100,000. Eliminate the sped Wilson teacher for $67,000. We are carrying a third kindergarten teacher class at the Goodyear. Because of enrollment is fairly close to where we may need that third class, but where we don't absolutely need it, we've eliminated that. We reduced the increase to the legal line item by $50,000, and we've canceled the boys volleyball team for a savings of almost $16,000. We currently don't have a boys volleyball team, but there is a desire. Mr. Duran has indicated that there is a desire to start one next year. These costs here would be the purchase of equipment, uniforms, and stipend for the coaches. We just won't go forward with that. As you can see, in the previous budget that we were working with, we were going to apply the entire $2 million of ESSER in FY23. So by cutting the $558,000 roughly, we offset the application of the FY23 funds by that amount, reducing it to approximately $1.44 million and rolling that $558,000 over to FY24. However, as I indicated, we are not quite there, and we will begin to move forward with some other cuts that we'll propose in the near future.
And so at a meeting today with the mayor, we went over, so currently in our original proposed budget, not the one that has these positions cut, we had 30 new positions. Those reductions bring it down to 25. The mayor has indicated that he would be willing to see 15 new positions in our budget. And so that's what we're working on, is looking at positions. And in discussions with the mayor, that 15 new could be you swap a new one for an old position. If we identify an existing position that maybe can be modified, whatever they do in the administrative world, looking at positions, reviewing the positions and so forth. So that's where we're at right now. We're looking to modify our budget so that we have, from those 5, reducing 10 positions, essentially. Okay. I don't know if I'll let the superintendent, if you wanted to add anything.
No, I think I'll
Okay.
take questions.
Okay. All right. Ms. Cormier?
I was wondering if this is regarding the health insurance that the mayor has put aside, if it's possible somehow if these positions, or there are some that opt not to have the health insurance, can we get by with that?
Yeah, so it's always a trick to know if someone's, when we offer them a position, if they're going to take health insurance.
Right.
And the way the city budgets is that it's about $20,000 for someone that's on a family plan, so they just assume that people will take the family plan. We don't know when we hire, so.
So it could end up that a number of people who are either single or don't
Or
elect.
opt out, right,
Right.
wouldn't necessarily affect it, yeah. But again, it's hard
just
to
don't
know.
Right.
Yeah.
Is it possible to use the ESSER funds for like the contractual services in order to not have that, not provide health insurance?
Yeah, so we talked about that a little bit today. Sometimes, though, the contractual services, as an example, a BCBA, you'd be paying, significantly more for a contractual service than you would be for somebody to be in district.
But
Again,
we would be paying all that versus
Correct,
20,000.
yes, yeah. So that, you know, this was this afternoon, we were
Right.
down at City Hall, so we've not yet circled back to any department head or coordinator to review their budget. That process likely will begin tomorrow morning again, but yeah, so you know, again, you can do contractual things, but it costs more.
So one other thing, I just, you know, we came to agreement. The mayor understands there are certain positions that occur, let's say if more students attend a grade where the superintendent comes to us and says he needs a new teacher, somebody moves into district special, those are ones we can't control. But we did agree in principle that, you know, we're not going to say, okay, we're going to save the ESSER funds, and then after the budget's approved, we're going to put all those positions back in that we are cutting now. So, you know, I think in principle, that's where we left it, because, you know, I just want to add that the mayor is giving us, you know, all of our capital improvement plan outside of the budget. So we have to keep that in mind, so.
One last question.
Yep.
With the announcement of Mr. Martin taking over as interim principal, that removes one position?
No.
No.
So, because we wouldn't have a principal, how does that, that's what I'm,
What's
where we have
the-
three assistants.
We'd have to backfill his position.
And, I didn't realize we were going to do that.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Hannah first.
You know,
Crowley?
I just, thank you. I have grave concerns about making cuts to our budget, or I should say reducing, because we're not making cuts. These things don't exist yet. You know, this is money, this is ESSER money that was given directly to the school system. This 3.75 spending limit has been met. And, you know, at this point, we're making no impact on the taxpayers of Woburn. So I guess if the mayor was here, I would ask him, you know, under what, I guess, authority or principle does the office of the mayor have authority to tell us how we use our ESSER money? You know, but that being said, I will go through the budget and see where I see some wiggle room, because I understand the concern, especially next year, you know, in terms of rolling over these new positions. But, you know, I just want to state that we could pass this budget, send it over to the city council, and the city council can't say, you know, school district, you can't use your federal grants, because the federal grants were given to us for the purpose of helping children heal from the catastrophe of COVID, which is what exactly this budget is doing. But, you know, I will do my due diligence in looking at the budget.
Yeah, you know, I think the mayor recognizes our authority over the budget. He's just giving his overview of, you know, what he's looking at in general of the city budget, and just remind the committee that, you know, the mayor ultimately sets how much money he sends to the council. He sets that thing, you know, so we send the budget to him. That does not necessarily mean that's what he sends to the council, so.
But it's at a 3.75, so it would.
I'd say he does, there's no law that says he has to send the 3.75 increase to the council. You know, and there's no indication he wants to do that. I think,
Right.
you know, he wants us to look at it with the information that I provided you from the mayor about the city, you know, and, you know, we've always had a collaborative working relationship with the mayor and the council to get a budget, and I'm sure we'll do the same thing this time, so, okay. Mr. Lipsy.
Yeah, I mean, I hear that, and I understand the mayor's concerns, but, you know, to sort of echo Ms. Crowley here, you know, I have to admit I'm a little frustrated by this, right? I mean, this is my third budget on this committee, and it's the third time that we've had to make last-minute changes to a budget that, at least from my view, had been worked out over months carefully in collaboration between the administration and City Hall. And so, you know, I guess I'm frustrated that we find ourselves here again. It feels a little bit like Lucy with the football. You know, we have been talking all year. Again, as I said before, we've been talking all year about the situation that our schools find themselves in right now, about the dire needs that our students have, that our staff has. Look, I can tell you from a ground level what's going on in our schools right now. I'm not in the Woburn schools, but it's not that different, and it's not always pretty right now. We have staffing shortages, we have morale issues, we have student concerns. There's a lot of stuff going on. The money that the ESSER funds represents was meant to help us bridge that gap. Right? That, as Ms. Crowley said, that was money that was given directly to the schools. That is money that is meant to help us deal with the problems that we have in our buildings right now. And so, I guess I just sort of, I want to appeal a little bit to the mayor here in terms of what we're going to be losing when we make these cuts and the impact that it's going to have on our kids. These are positions that we desperately need. None of these are luxury items, especially not after the list of cuts that we're putting up on the screen here. Right? These are positions that our kids need. And so I guess if we were far apart on money right now, that would be a different thing. But we're not. The mayor gave us, in collaboration with the administration, a 3.75% number. We've met that number. We did a lot of hard work to get there between the administration, between the finance subcommittee, between staff. We did a lot of work to get there. And so it's frustrating to me to know that we have a budget that meets that's going to meet the needs of our kids, and we still can't progress beyond it, that we have to go back to it. So I find it hard to believe, I'll do my due diligence as well. I'll look at what we come up with. I find it hard to imagine a scenario where I'm going to vote in favor of a lot of additional cuts here. But I'll see what the administration presents us with and go from there.
Ms. Chisholm.
With the list that we originally got, the positions that the administrative gave to us at finance, that first list, there's 7 of them on there. We cut that, so we're still going to be off, because I will tell you right now, I am not going to cut the assistant principal at the Malcolm White School. I mean, when we've built these schools and we've increased the population of these schools, we have given an assistant principal. And I think it's very important, because we've done it the Reeves, the Rome one, and the Goodyear, they have it. So I think that that's important. I mean, they've been asking for it, and they're the only people that came to our meetings, and that they, searched out parents and got the petition signed, and everything. They did their work as citizens and taxpayers to come to us. So that is one position. I don't care where we have to take it from. That position has to go in there. As far as I'm concerned, that's my vote anyway. But I will wait for your recommendation where you think, besides these other 7, where we can get 3 more to cut. And I understand the mayor, and I've said it a million times about these positions, but he really can't tell us where to cut. He can tell us the amount to cut. He can be upset about where we add these positions, but it is our budget, it's our bottom line. But we're not going to really get anywhere if we start putting vinegar on the table and thinking we're going to get, dressing out of it. It's not going to work. So, we have to do what we have to do, and we'll make it happen as we have in the past. We've had worse budgets, we've had harder times. It'll work, but the principal, the assistant principal there is a must.
I'm going to let people go around. Yeah. And, anybody else? No, I'm trying to see if anybody hasn't spoken. Mr. Mulrennan?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, thank you to the administration. I know this is, as they say, fresh off the presses. The administration just got this news from the mayor a few hours ago. So obviously we really appreciate the efforts there. To see this, I think going back to our previous meeting, sat here, I wasn't happy. I was the one that said, you know what, Courtney, you're looking for 5. Can you make do with 3? Here we are. Dave, you're looking for this down at the facilities. Can you make do with that? We need somebody here. Can you make do with that? Can you get by? It's an awful way to run a household. It's an awful way to run a business. To me, it's an awful way to run a school district. And here we are a week later, presented with these kind of reductions. And again, to the points already been made, there's some retirement people that are retiring and new people are taking their place. Obviously, they're going to need insurances that, is put upon the mayor. So I think moving forward, we are going to have another public hearing. This is the public's chance, as Mrs. Chisholm said. We had people before us, looking for certain things in our budget. If we don't hear from people, then we don't really know. We understand from the administration that each department comes in with their Christmas wish lists and hopes for the best. And I'm sure, anybody sitting here tonight can tell us that way back when they came in and they wanted everything. And you said no. Bob said no. Courtney said, can you get by? And somehow we got by to what we thought was 3.75 last week. I left here saying, oh, you know what? Not the greatest 3.75, but hopefully this will fly downtown. It'll pass, with the mayor. The people will see it. We get a little bit out of it, and we'll work with what we have, to get by with. So myself, I'm looking tonight for the appeal of the public to reach out to the mayor and try to work with the administration to, better our financial stability moving forward. I look forward to whatever's presented to us, I guess, the next round, as they say. And other than that, I wish you all the best of luck moving forward with what you have to do. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Kissler, did you want to?
I'm good.
Okay. I'll start. Ms. Cormier again?
Do we have a sense of how many open positions we have this year that we had budgeted for? Like, we were having trouble hiring the RBTs for SPED, although I know those were added on after, but like, things like that.
Yeah. So the RBTs, because those were out of grant.
Yes, they were out of
Okay.
SPED grant.
I just, obviously, like we've all said, we want these positions, but can we fill them all?
I
We
think
talked
that's what I heard you
Yeah.
ask,
Yeah.
right? So off the top of my head, I think there's 16 and a half paras in special ed, as an example. And a lot of that's legal, as we heard earlier tonight. And so we need to do our best to find those people. It's not a guarantee that, they'll
Are you referring to like the school psychologist, for example? that
Yeah,
was
different things that are
posted on
like
your
just been
laptop?
sitting open, we've been trying, we
Yes.
haven't been able
Right.
to, that's money not spent.
Yeah.
Yep. We have, there's been, as Ms. Young has said, there's been several positions that we have either not filled or filled for a short time,
Yeah.
and then had another vacancy. So,
Yeah, I think that's one of the things the administration is going to look at, because obviously you have positions that aren't filled now, but there may be that position you really got to try and keep pushing to fill it,
Yes.
as opposed to positions that aren't filled that maybe you can get by for a year. So that's why I think they need the additional time to look hard at these things.
Is it possible with, and I don't know if it's because of different classrooms and things, but where we have a lot of like the .5 paras, if you have two of those, like the retirement at the Linscott that we talked about, that's becoming 2 paras, that's then 2 people that would be potentially on health insurance. So is it possible to put things like that together so it's less individual people, but making one full-time employee? Does that make sense?
well, I think that makes sense, but a .5 person may not actually qualify for health insurance, and then when you make them a 1.0, then it kicks in the insurance.
Okay, so those 16 paras might not even factor into this.
Those 16 and a half paras are all.
Those are all full-time.
Full-time.
The 16.
Okay,
So
yes.
the one
Right.
pair that we had as a 1.0 that would be seen as one that takes health insurance by dividing it into the .5s, I believe is how we're
Avoiding
how
that.
we're
Avoiding
making
it,
reduction.
right? Yeah.
Got it.
So I think it's more helpful to go that way, actually.
Yes. Appreciate that. All right, so we'll think about that. We'll circle back.
It's like you're at a concert.
Yeah, I know, you just needed a visual.
I get it.
Okay. Mr. Lipson, are you all done? Ms.
Yes,
Cormier?
thank you.
I just had a quick question about the Goodyear kindergarten teacher. So what are our numbers at the Goodyear right now?
Sure.
28.
Yeah, 28. And I will say, we kind of, we looked around and we looked at numbers and kind of where things are. And right now, kind of that's where it looked like the number was kind of staying steadfast. But of course, it might be another building where the number went down and kind of things move around. But it looked like across the board that was the place. And that does fluctuate over there.
Yeah.
We go up and down.
Yeah, I mean, that's my concern, is, the Goodyear is a school where we do often see people moving in potentially unexpectedly. And so, I'd hate to have a situation like we've had at other schools the past couple of years where, we budget for these positions, having a pretty solid idea that we're going to have to revise that right off the bat. And then we have to shift students around, disrupt classrooms a couple of weeks or even a couple of months into the school year.
But that's one that I think the mayor, if that happens, that say they get over 30, then that's one we could use in the fall, we could fill.
I get it. It's just, if we're already fairly certain that's going to happen, it feels a little bit like a shell game, because it's one that's going to wind up just disrupting a classroom and causing stress on our kids and our staff. If we're pretty sure that that's going to wind up happening, it's hard for me to say no, don't fund it, and then a couple of weeks or a couple of months into the school year we get to go with an emergency postman, right? What good does that do our kids?
So I agree with you, and over the past few years, we've tried to use 5 as a buffer.
Right.
Okay, and in this case, there's 28 kindergarten students enrolled in 3 classes. So you're looking at 9 kids per class. So that's where we felt safest. For the reasons you outlined, we're trying to even stay away from that 5 as a buffer game, so that we don't have to do that to disrupt classes.
I was going to say, because we have kind of done that, and we did try when looking through to not kind of cut as close, especially in the places that we have had that. Right now it's a good year. You have 2 grade levels that are down to 2. So this would make a 3rd. So it's not like it's a building where we're not seeing it in other places.
Right.
I do think that, as we have talked about, I think that's as the more buildings that we make, that's going to change the scope of every building all the time. But at this moment in time, I think 28 it's going to take a while to get us to 3 rooms.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then just one additional question: the reduction in innovation coaches.
Yes.
Those are any of those positions where we are going to be losing existing staff?
So they are existing staff who would have other positions in the district that would not be that position.
Okay.
Yes.
I mean, I hate to lose innovation coaches, but as you know, I mean, I'm willing to live with it if we're not losing any staff.
I think that it's kind of a constant shuffle game. I think that ideally it would mean that they would go back and then everyone would kind of find a space. Ultimately, because they would be seemingly displaced, that would impact kind of where they went, and that could impact somebody else. But that we won't know until, the placement happens.
Okay.
All set?
Yeah.
Ms. Crowley?
In our next sort of discussion, which I know you guys are going to be doing a lot of work, and Bob, I just want to thank you so much for all the work that you've been doing.
My pleasure. I don't know how you still have more hair than I do.
He's a Merrimack graduate. Nothing ruffles his feathers.
One question I did have, because even though I'm absolutely opposed to any cuts, but one question I did have was, the 7 MLL positions. There's 7 new positions in this, and that seems like sometimes getting too many positions in one area can be a little overwhelming for the infrastructure. So that's just one sort of tossing it out there that, when we did interventionists and when we did school adjustment counselors, it was gradual, and we were able to sort of build up that infrastructure of social emotional learning. I'm just wondering if that is the case with MLL. That's my only question. And of course, administration should not even attempt to answer that tonight, because it's a hard question. But just to show that I am thinking, maybe as a team player, that's one area where and of course the history coordinator is that, what's the data to show that has been.
We could have a whole night going back and forth. Yeah. So we won't discuss that tonight, but maybe in a future
I don't
meeting.
want to lose any friends. But I do have some,
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Things. And I also want to state that this budget, as it exists now, is wonderful. But even if we do make cuts, there's going to be no vital organs hit, People aren't going to be losing their jobs.
Mm-hmm.
So it's bad, but it's not that bad.
Okay.
So, thank you, everybody.
Okay. Anyone else have anything to say? Well, thank you for voicing your opinions, giving some guidance to the administration. And so they were asking, ideally next Thursday, if that works for the members. I think that works for their plans what they'd like to do is work on this and then run it by the mayor again, and then release,
5th?
Huh?
Yes, you go.
5th.
Yep. Okay, does that work? 7 o'clock?
Sure. Can we do 7:30?
Excuse me? 7:30.
7:30, okay?
7:30, okay. And if we could, we'll open it with a budget, with a public comment on the budget?
Hearing.
Yeah, public hearing, yeah.
Then we have a regular meeting, right?
Right, yeah, just,
So 7:30 for that.
Can we have a
7:30
public hearing if we haven't published the final budget yet?
well, we're just using we'll use the existing one.
No.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll do the public hearing at 7:30, and then the meeting will proceed immediately after that.
And that's the only agenda is budget,
And put an executive session just in case.
okay? 7:30, the 5th of May.
But no subcommittee reports or anything. Okay. Okay. Anything else? Again, I want to reiterate the committee's thanks to the administration working on this. I know they've worked hard. We're at the goal line. Now we're stumbling a little, but it's not because of the people working on the budget. So appreciate that.
Thank you. And Patty McKinnon's here tonight.
Oh, yeah,
too,
Patty.
so-
Yeah. They're always included in our budget, team. So thank you. Yeah. All right. Next up, you want to introduce?
Sure, so I think mid-year data review, Ms. Courtney Young is going to walk us through where we are sort of academically. This has been a challenging year, I think, as everybody knows, and the gaps that emerged as a result of COVID, and just kind of an opportunity to see where we were in the fall as opposed to, this data is a little dated, but you can walk us through it.
Sure. All right. We met in the fall, and typically we usually wait until spring before we kind of look at it again. And this is an opportunity for us to kind of, especially given knowing that we were coming back in the fall, and I think we were looking at students coming back and kind of where we were, current reality. This is kind of a chance for us to kind of take a look in the middle of the year. To your point, this is around January, February, so it's a little dated, but I still think it kind of speaks to a lot of the work that we're doing. I think that the reality is that, from September to January, February, we did a lot of positive things and a lot of growth, and then I think there's also places that we didn't see as much as we would like. And I think that I look at a lot of the data for me, is not always kind of only looking for the growth, it's also kind of looking for what information does it tell us and what are the things that we need to be doing. So I'm going to kind of speak to what we're seeing, kind of what are the trends, what we're noticing, kind of how it's impacting some of the decisions that we're making, and kind of what it means moving forward. And I say that because some of these charts look really good, and some of these charts are getting there. And so we're looking at, ultimately, we use our universal screening tools for the bulk of our data review. We've been using universal screeners primarily in the elementary schools. We moved them up to the middle school this year. We are using them to really drive a lot of our focus in the 6th grade, that transition year. We are not yet looking at the universal screeners to the same extent in 7th and 8th. We're going to kind of phase that focus in for next year. We use IXL for math 1 through 8. We use it for IXL ELA 6 through 8. And then our DIBBLES is our most kind of, is the data that we use K through 5. And that's also what fulfills our requirement for the dyslexia screener, is fulfilled within our DIBBLES. I would say that kind of some of my themes is I think that overall we're seeing a lot of kind of consistent growth. And especially kind of consistent growth with what, and I'll show a little bit of kind of what we anticipated as kind of pre-pandemic growth versus growth we see now. I think that the biggest difference, while the growth is looking similar, I think that our starting point was really different. And I think that's what we're kind of noticing the most, is that students came in, and so now we're seeing growth, but not necessarily realizing that a lot of where they started was below. So while it shows that someone didn't necessarily move a color, there was a lot of growth because they started much more behind, and so than we necessarily see. The other part of that is I think that especially kind of across the board, I think in math data, I think on a positive, I guess my silver lining, my bright spot, is that in the fall, our math data across the board consistently was an area of concern. We saw just that was where kind of in our MCAS scores plus in our internal data is that we saw students coming in, significantly behind. And we talked a lot about kind of how linear it is and it builds off of each other. And so it was kind of an expected part. And I would say that across the board, our kind of students' growth patterns in math has been a significant jump. And I think what it showed us is that although in the kind of the starting point it was hard, it's a place where we've been able to really make that growth quickly. All right. So I want to just thank Kristen Slegmolen, who's one of our innovation coaches, has really spearheaded the IXL implementation at the elementary school, and so she's been the one that's really been kind of working through this data. But ultimately, our students, this is really just looking at growth. Again, a lot of this, again, speaks to the fact that the starting point was much lower and than sometimes we're used to, and so the increase for students has been significant. So across the board, all of our students 1 through 5 in our IXL math, their starting point we're seeing that between 80 and 90% of our students are showing significant increases, with very minimal students kind of showing any form of regression. Okay, so then I'm going to explain this. That's okay, you can go. It's all right, yeah. I make sure that the yellows were all the same, Mr. Wells. So when looking at the data for reading, one of the things that we took a look at was what did it look like in 2019, 2020. So these are what our first grade data looked like kind of pre-pandemic. So our students entered first grade kind of using the same measure. As you can see, we have 56% students at kind of above benchmark. And now in the fall of our fall first graders are entering us with about 24% students above benchmark. And so kind of just to give you kind of an understanding of that, kind of that students are starting at a different place. That doesn't mean that I kind of look at that red intensive number as something that's like, oh, that means we have all of these students who are intensive. To me, that means that we have a lot of students who clearly just missed pieces of instruction. Because I don't believe that the pandemic made that many students kind of unable to know it. It's just that we didn't tell them about it. And so one of the big parts that we've talked about as students have come in and as we're kind of working with our students, especially in the area of reading, is kind of what is the approach to kind of accelerate learning the quickest. With that said, what we are seeing is that the growth that we made kind of in 2019, 2020 from fall until winter is around the same that we're making now. So students are kind of learning at the right speed. It's just that they're kind of coming to us needing kind of to fill in the gaps. And so with that, if you want to go to the next part, this is kind of that same cohort. So you have your fall of 2019, those are your first graders, who are currently now your fall of 2021 third graders. So these are the same kids. This is their first grade data and this is their third grade data. Does that make sense? And so when you look at it, you have your above benchmark, and benchmark is around 60%, a little over. And then your above benchmark and benchmark in third grade is actually the same. So we're sitting around the 60-something%. And so our students who are in that at and above benchmark in first grade and the number that we have in third grade is actually around the same. And so our students who were kind of at benchmark pre all of this actually stayed. And so the group of our students that we saw not make as much growth as we normally would see are our students who were struggling before. And so what we know is that kind of tier 2 group, right, is kind of bigger than we're used to. And so this is really kind of looking at what are the things that we can be doing. And I know that with our content specialists that came and spoke and why we talk so much about that tier 2 is it's that group of students that maybe didn't make kind of that growth over time. But that our at and above benchmark students did. And so it's not that we're necessarily adding more, it's just that we're looking for that group of students and kind of how are we kind of targeting those who maybe would have made that growth in second grade and kind of targeting them now. That is, so if you want to go to the next part, one of the things that is kind of, I guess, the important part of all of this is that we look at this data a lot. And that we look at these pieces to kind of drive our specific needs for our learners. And so we talk about the win block. And so as you can see, it was just an example, and this is just, I literally went in and grabbed a group at one of our buildings, and I can kind of always guarantee that like everyone is doing the exact same thing. I didn't have to search for this, I didn't have to look that hard, like I opened up one folder to find you an example, and because we've been really consistent and super systematic about the way that we're approaching kind of meeting our students' needs. This is an example of a group of students in second grade who needed more support based off of their DIBELs, and so we're constantly monitoring their progress, we're identifying kind of the areas that they need supported, and we're providing them with that kind of systematic support and learning.
Am I staying here?
No, it's okay. I can go back. So as we said, we moved into our sixth grade this year to focus kind of on our our WIN block and our IXL data. And so, as I mentioned before, a lot of our kind of starting point in math was was an area of of not as strong as our ELA numbers in the beginning of the year, and that we were able to see kind of that growth very quickly. And when I was kind of looking through this grade 6 data, our sixth graders in the beginning of the year, most of that below level, most of our current sixth graders, the last time that they were like in-person instruction was fourth grade, right? And so most of their math was like hovering around that like 4 to 5. And then in the winter, now we have all of these students who have kind of bumped up. And so it was really just kind of showing us what we expected, which is that a lot of students got a lot of learning, but a lot of students just needed us to kind of plug in the gaps. And so our math data is definitely a space where we are seeing kind of jumps happening regularly at a kind of a much more accelerated rate. And I think that kind of the bigger part of this, and that's why I say, like, we're looking at data really close together in time, right? And so it's kind of, it's hard because you don't want to draw a ton of conclusions based off of this piece. And I think that we came into this year knowing that we weren't going to close every gap from this September to this June. Right. And we've talked a lot about the fact that we're building this over, multiple years. And that it's not that students don't know things, it's that a lot of students didn't hear it. And so what our assessment tools have done for us, and by really kind of having these be front and center of our instructional time, is that teachers are able to say, oh, this student is here because they didn't get these pieces of it. I'm going to teach them those too, and then they move right along. So with that, just kind of to showcase some of our work that we've been doing kind of to support our students in the middle school win block time. Go again. This is an example of how our IXL data takes our group of students and tells us exactly the skills that we need to be doing for small group instruction. And so teachers takes a lot of our guesswork out, says these are the things that this group of students needs to know, and we target their skills from there. And so if you keep going, you'll be able to see that, for example, in our first cycle at the Kennedy Middle School, when they knew that their focus was on numerical operations, they have their beginning scores, their end scores, and we're able to see growth all the way down the line. For context, any number over 100 is about a year's growth. So 100 is a year, 200 is 2 years, and so you're seeing how, I don't expect that a student really grew 2 years in time from September to November. What it shows me is that students were missing kind of specific things from grades before. We plug in those gaps and they jump start and watch over, right? And so again, that's an example of our math focus groups. And then to our next one, we're again seeing with our ELA focus groups We're targeting instruction based off of our data. We're doing really we're assessing students kind of in the beginning and the end, and we're able to see that students are making, significant growth and they're making it quickly. And I think that, it's to nobody's surprise that we started the year with students who, had some areas of kind of pockets of things for us to fill in. And I think that we've spent a lot of hard work as a group figuring out ways that we can kind of be spending time doing kind of checkpoints a lot, kind of targeting those skills, and really making kind of this growth in incremental rates. And so when we think about kind of what are the ongoing things that this is doing for us, you can go to the next one. I said this in the beginning, that really for me, kind of beyond how many reds and how many yellows and greens and all of those pieces, because it's really kind of one snapshot, one day, and one very kind of small piece of, I think, a very big story with a lot of parts, is that we looked at the data from the winter from here, and one of the biggest things that we understood was that we had kind of from our teachers and from the data itself that our students really needed kind of really great direct instruction around early literacy skills. And so what we actually have starting this week, and so just kind of showing you some of the things that we're kind of immediately putting into place. Starting this week, Melissa Orkin, the Crafting Minds that we've been working with, is coming into every elementary school, and she's actually going into classrooms, and she's modeling like exact lessons based off of the data that we have that's going to help teachers kind of meet those kind of teaching skills. And so I think it's, we're able to take, this is the thing that we need, and kind of put it into place really quickly. We're in the process now of also looking at kind of what assessments that we have and kind of which ones of them are helping us get to that information the best, and what are the pieces of kind of assessment data that isn't, and kind of revising that plan moving forward. And we're working on kind of ensuring that we're building up our really strong student profiles, so that we know that, again, we're looking at gaps over much more than this short period of time. How are we kind of not having our teachers in the fall kind of have to do as much catch-up work on our students? We have them in front of us now. What are the ways that we can be using kind of our data analytics platform, so that when students walk in September, that the teachers kind of have it ready to go, so kind of expediting our processes. And we're actually working right now on kind of how to use this data as well, to be looking at Atlas, and kind of adjusting scope and sequences. I think we're looking at kind of our 6th grade or 7th grade or 8th grade and our 5th to 6th, and making sure that if we're not getting to topics, that we're making sure that the next grade knows, and we're kind of placing those pieces. So that's driving a lot of the work, as well as taking a close look at kind of our entire Tier 2 work and just making sure that we're consistent across the board. I feel like I went really fast.
It's not bad.
What else is new?
I know. So I'm like, listen to this forever.
Okay, good. That was good. You had a lot of information in there. Ms. Kissel.
Question for you.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're looking at the budget as it is right now. With
Sure.
some positions at the 3 original now.
Yeah.
Potentially cutting, a lot of positions.
Mm-hmm.
Based on what you've done here, and obviously the progress to kind of fill in that 2-year gap and get the kids, because these kids are moving on. This isn't just a 3rd grade that stays in 3rd grade, and we can kind of work with that. These kids are moving.
Yeah.
Obviously it's tough to say an exact, but positions that might have to be cut based on we're looking at positions as opposed to things.
Sure.
How do you feel?
What is the positions that
Yeah.
based off of this? And so
That would bring this backwards, in other words.
Sure.
And say, you know what, we were doing great, and we're going to have to step back again, and it's a lot to ask for the kids and
Yes.
the staff to kind of keep making this up.
Absolutely.
And that's what the ESSER funds were supposed to
be for. So I think that it actually had come up in conversation, and it was the thing that I actually said that this will fall apart without interventionists. I think that the more staff that we have that are really designated to be in buildings to be working with students on this and direct teaching, to me is imperative, and that would absolutely impact, I think, would break the system down. I don't think we could function without them. I think that otherwise, I think that everything is, I've said this before, like it's all important.
Yeah.
But I think that in terms of like directly impacting the function of this, there's that part. And then, of course, the content specialists in the buildings are the ones that drive this entire thing. And so that would also really break down the process.
I mean, with the gap and the trying to make it get back to where it was and get these kids kind of back on par, at least, if not above that, before they get to the higher grades, and it really starts affecting them, and then we spend more money on other things.
Of course.
Because they lose interest, they lose lots of stuff. Just the ability to kind of continue on and hopefully, graduate at a high level and move on from there. So anything, you'll all be working with that.
That would impact it. Yeah,
I think that's important. You don't have to state it right now. I'm just asking you to keep in mind things that would really impact this, because we do have that bubble.
Yes.
And that term's been used over and over and over. That 2 years that these kids, I just hate to say, that's that 12th grade, that's that COVID couple of years. You know what I mean? And it's horrible, because we went through this some point a while back. It was like and we said, well, we'll put money in that 3rd grade or 4th, whatever grade it was, that there was like a gap. I don't know what even the reason was and why there was that. But I said, what are we doing with the kids that are having the problem? I mean, we're fixing the issue there, so the 2nd grade is coming into 3rd, won't have that same problem, but what are we doing for the 3rd grade kids and the ones moving up? I just have to fall back. So just keep that in mind. I'm sure you will.
Yeah, no, I think that I say this a lot, and because I talk to a lot of teachers frequently who are feeling, I think, I said this again in September, they're looking at a classroom of students that looks completely different to kind of the profile and learning profile of what they're typically used to. But we also talk a lot, especially kind of in the content specialist group, that I guess on 2 ways. One, I think it's that we're making a ton of progress. And that's why it's really hard for me, and I preface all of the data, where like it's really just like one snapshot, and I think it drives a lot of our work, and so I think it's important to know it. And I say that all of the time, because with all 7 of the, like with the 7 content specialists in all the schools, like we put up on the board, and I'm always like it's hard, because you want to focus on, oh my goodness, we've been gone and there's all this worry. But at the same point, like my mindset is also like, one, like 3rd grade is 3rd grade. Like we're not teaching 2nd grade and 3rd grade. We're still teaching 3rd grade. And also that it's just that we're looking at students now as like, this is not necessarily like their COVID part. It's just like, this is the learners that are in front of us, and we need to get them there. And so we just have to like figure out how to get there. But to your point, I think that there are positions in our schools that are helping us do that work that would make it very hard to do without them. But we try to not think of the negative part of like that they missed all of these things. It's really just that like the puzzle looks different, and kind of the path to get to the end looks different. It's not impossible, and I don't, I really believe that we'll do it. It just, looks different.
I mean, the classroom teacher only has, number one, so much time, but also, like you said, they're expecting this. That's not coming to their classroom September, what are we doing, the 20th or something, 1st grade? First day of school? Whatever it is. So, I think it's something like that.
Yes.
So I think that's the issue. And, and there's only so much the teacher can do. And at that point, there's a breakdown there, and there's a...
We tell them all the time, we do not expect you to make up all of this in a year. And I think I keep saying it, like, and I can't, it's like, maybe it's like the one thing, like the soundbite I want them to get. Like, this is not 1 year. And I think that, I talk about this with 8th grade teachers, where I'm like, it's not 1 year, right? It's going to take us a few, but as long as everybody knows that when they're coming to me, these are the pieces, and that we're kind of supporting them, especially from the curriculum department, with like, these are the things that were missed, and so like you just need to grab them, and I think it speaks a lot to the kind of the support of having kind of these departmental people, because a lot of what they do is help vertically make sure that we're not missing things. We're just putting things in different places for a minute.
and that's what I mean. We more time on learning would be great for not only the kids, but mainly the kids, and obviously an earlier start time to get them kind of going before the next break. So those are things that.
And it should still be fun.
Yes.
Yes.
Good thing.
All set?
Yes.
Mr. Lipset.
So I'm curious as to whether we're seeing in the data that you have there, growing equity gaps in terms of demographic groups, students with disabilities, multilingual learners. And and sort of my question goes a little bit towards Mr. Kissel's as well in terms of what we're looking at in the budget. A lot of the positions that were going to be added were positions that would have supported special education, that would have supported English language learners or multilingual learners. So I'm wondering what you see the impact of those positions as, what they could have been in terms of these numbers, and whether you feel like that's going to set us back in terms of losing those positions in the budget.
Sure.
So a complicated question.
It's okay. I unpacked it. No, I think that the first part is, and I think it's hard, like I certainly don't mind looking at mid-year. I never mind looking at the parts, but kind of understanding what we're looking at. I think it's really hard to draw, for me, to draw conclusions of kind of gaps of subgroups from the benchmark of fall winter. I certainly think that there are things that I've looked at. I wouldn't say I would be comfortable drawing the conclusion off of that period of time, because I think there's just like too many factors.
Right.
And so I think that it's important, one, to kind of take note of it in 1 year, and then I think it's really important to take note of it in 2, right?
Okay.
I think that there's just so many factors post-pandemic that are impacting the data that's in front of us to kind of make the conclusion that it's that thing in that subgroup for everyone. I think that we know historically subgroups that struggle, and that's why we, when we sit down and we look at a budget, we're always kind of thinking about those groups, because we know that's a drawn conclusion. I will say that in terms of kind of groups that are impacted the most and kind of position-wise, I will say that a really big part of the success of what we're doing is the work where we're really kind of looking at all of our tiers of students, meaning our general education students, our kind of students in the middle who are struggling, and our special education students, kind of under one umbrella of need, and that, Director Ryan and I have looked at kind of all programs that are good for all students, and not being afraid to make sure that we're getting programs to kids after they're going through different processes and places. And so I think that we've spent a lot of time just kind of educating all of our teachers to teach all of our students really, really well. And the amount of time, again, that we kind of spend talking with Director Ryan about what are the needs of kind of our general education teachers for training in order to better support special education teachers in the first grade classroom. And so I think to kind of answer your question, I of course think staffing is a part of that support, and always helps. But I think that supporting and kind of building the needs that our current teachers have is also a big part of that work. And so when we look at kind of the budget part, I look at the body part, but I also look at what are we doing to make sure that we have kind of the funding in order to train everybody, to teach everybody really, really well.
I appreciate that. I mean, I am concerned as we're going forward with the budget, losing some of the positions that were being proposed, that we might see, maybe the data doesn't spell it out clearly now, but thinking forward about whether or not we're widening any equity gaps is something that's certainly on my mind.
Yes. No, and I think that, with that said, I would imagine that what you would predict is probably what I see.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thanks.
All set?
Yep.
Ms. Chisholm?
I just, looking at the 6th grade scares me. I mean, but you figure that 4th graders, they left school, they never really had 5th grade, and then they come into 6th grade. So I'm sure to the students and to the parents, and especially to the teachers in front of them, it's discouraging to see these results in front of them every single day. And then the kids are losing out on things like the after-school tutoring that they did not have, or the extra help that they could have had when we were home for a year. When our schools were forced to shut down, these kids lost their education. I think that that's huge in this, and it reflects that it does help to have these late buses to the schools so the kids can stay, that we have a chance for kids to get extra help from their teacher. So I think that that all feeds into it. So I think that every kid struggles, and this is, I mean, when we have 91%, that's scary. So I mean, that's just a huge amount of kids that we need to service these kids. And it's not just a certain group or a certain, equity or anybody's financial status. It's all of our kids that might need that little extra boost that kept them that BC student, that they didn't get it for a year, now that they're CD student, and they're losing out on it. And those are the kids that I'm worried about. The kids that are going mainstream, just kind of going through the middle and they're toddling, and they're not getting the extra from where they need to do. Because our bright students are going to excel because they're going to be pushed because they're driven to do that. And the lower ones are going to get the attention because they're going to make sure they're on IEPs and they have all the extra help. So it's middle kids that I'm worried about. So I just want to make sure that we always keep in there any kind of tutoring that we can give to these kids and the extra help that we can provide to these kids. Late buses need to be staying in so that these kids can get the help they need as much as we possibly can. So that's my spiel.
So if I can jump in slightly, because I was going to ask you to talk about this. So I want to give the middle schools credit here because we did adopt the WIN block at the 6th grade. We did that last spring in anticipation of what you just saw. And it took a lot of collaboration with the teachers and the administrators at the schools to figure it out. But it's working, and I think I saw Ms. Chartier
yes.
On Twitter from the Kennedy, talking about the WIN block. And it was the first run through, and so I think it's working well. And again, it's a collaboration with the teachers, the administrators, to try to figure out, what I need for kids. And
so we got to keep doing that so the teachers also don't get felt like they're burnt out because they're not being supported in the ways that they need to be supported.
Right.
We have teachers that want to be able to do great things, but sometimes they hands are tied.
Right.
Okay. Any other questions?
Good job, Courtney.
Yeah, I did. I too saw the thing with the 6th grade. And I think part of the thing we can't tell is like if it's two grades below grade level or is it half a grade, things like that. Because seeing 91% of students at the beginning of the year being below grade level is in the fall. Well, it was still half of them, more than half in the winter. And so, so.
I think that's where kind of the pieces that you miss when you look at broad brush is that a lot of those students also probably made a lot of growth. Yeah. And so.
Right. And then the other question I had is, what kind of measures are we looking at above the 6th grade to see where students are at?
So we use IXL data that you see here in 7 and 8. Because we don't have the WIN block. The WIN block is a lot of where kind of the assessment tool takes place. So our 7th and 8th grade teachers are kind of piloting it and not as implementing it to the point where, that I would show kind of their data. We do have it. And so that goes ELA and math up through 7 and 8. And then we have had different conversations around kind of what this looks like at the high school level. We did a few years ago try a literacy universal screener at the high school, and it didn't yield the data that we had hoped for, kind of the point of making sure it's always working. We do have a lot of kind of curriculum-based measures that they use at the high school, again, that we're kind of working into ways that we can look at kind of more macro level to kind of look at gaps and draw conclusions. But again, it's not as clean as the universal screeners because those are all kind of research-based, validated testing.
Because the state, when they had their board meeting, I guess the state has hired somebody to look at a lot of data, and they had a presentation, and they were saying growth between 8th and 10th, I think, is indicative of success going forward academically. And so, I just, we see a lot of stuff about the elementary students, and I just want to make sure, we get some presentations about looking at our middle and senior and high school students to see where they're at going forward. Okay. Anything?
I will say too, just out of, it just reminded me of it, We work with about 30 other districts around kind of literacy as a whole, and we've been working on kind of combining all of our kind of DIBELS data across all of these 30 kind of communities and kind of looking for common trends because what our data looks like is very similar to what everybody's data looks like, and I think it feels good when you look at it together, and so kind of how we're sharing resources and things like that.
And if I could, Mr. Chair, just, what you said earlier in the presentation really resonated with me. The idea that, we can't look at this as the COVID gap, but these are the learners who are in front of us, and we have to do our best by them. And I think we have to really be careful about sort of pegging this idea that there is some kind of a universal level that students should be at. We're dealing with something that's unprecedented. We can't necessarily peg ourselves to some preset level from before COVID, right? We have the learners we have. Yep. We're doing our best by them. This is a universal issue. So, I think it's, I hear Mrs. Chisholm's comments about what students have lost. I will say, we didn't shut our schools down for a year. We were teaching, we were learning. It was in a different way, and maybe there were areas where it wasn't up to the same standards we'd done before. Maybe in some cases, there were things that we were trying to do better. But I think it's really important that we avoid sort of putting those particular labels on our students when we talk about behind a certain number of grade levels or ahead or whatever it is. That's just my soapbox.
Okay, anything else? Thank you, Michelle. Sure. Okay, moving on to subcommittee reports. Finance Subcommittee.
Real brief, because we just talked about this tonight, but we did meet on Monday, and we do have a list of bills that need to be approved. Packet 1 was for $334, $941.91. Packet 2, $116, $817, $73. Packet 3 was $153, $930, $33. Packet 4 was $584, $014.22, and Packet 5 was $68,660.41. We need a motion to approve.
Second. Any questions on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
And we did have a journal entry that was been approved for $25.44.70 from athletics to the field account, and one was $158 from athletics to fine items. And then we just covered the budget, which we covered tonight.
And the balance of accounts?
Yep, that's the same.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve the balance of accounts.
So moved.
Second.
Second. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And we adjourned at 10 o'clock.
Okay. Communication Subcommittee.
We have not met since our last meeting.
Okay. Curriculum and Data Trends Subcommittee.
We have not met, Mr. Chairman. We had a great presentation from Ms. Young tonight. We may try to convene maybe next Thursday if Ms. Young and the other members are available.
You got nothing going on Thursday, right?
Nothing else.
Nothing else, either prior to the meeting or perhaps that afternoon.
You're not there anymore.
I'm saying, it's a busy week.
I just thought
It'd be good to push it.
get in on Thursday since we're already doing our school stuff. But no, we have not met, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
We'll try it Thursday.
All right. Okay. Personnel Subcommittee.
Yes, we did meet also on Monday, the 25th, at 10:07 a.m. here at the Joyce.
Ms. Cormier, could you alluded to it, but I did want to give the superintendent a chance to announce formally the high school situation.
Sure. So I'm pleased to announce that we appointed an interim principal at Woburn Memorial High School. Mr. Steve Martin has been appointed to that position. He'll begin July 1st. Mr. Martin's been with the Woburn Public Schools since 2002 and served in a variety of different roles, teacher, coach, club advisor, and he's very well regarded throughout the Woburn Memorial High School and the system. And so he will start, as I said, July 1 in this interim role. And so we're looking forward to working with Mr. Martin in his new capacity.
And the committee will have him probably in the beginning of September, give him some time to get adjusted to his new position, and we look forward to having him. Sorry.
Oh.
Do you have a question?
Yeah, just really quick. So this is an interim position. Is the intent to have him serve out the next school year and then?
Yeah, we will repost again in the spring.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for the interruption.
In attendance was myself, Ms. Chisholm, Mr. Kissel, Dr. Crowley, Mr. Alcanada, and Ms. McKinnon. There were some hiring updates, a number of positions closed on Friday the 22nd, including a computer science teacher at the Joyce, which we've had trouble finding those with proper certification, and an elementary health teacher. Now, some other positions are closing this week at the high school, middle school, and elementary schools, a number of SPED positions. Some positions currently that are filled with emergency licensure are being reposted for a preference with certified. Internal candidates are now using Talent Ed in order to streamline the process. Previously, they were going through the principals, and it was not as consistent. And the high school principal position closed, and some further things were happening, but that's now stale. So we adjourned at 10:33 a.m.
Okay. Any questions?
I do actually have a question.
Yes.
So I know, obviously, some of us had been part of the process for trying to find a new principal, and a couple people had reached out to me concerned about the sort of transparency of the process with the interim, knowing, that we were trying to get the candidates. Going forward, I'm assuming we're going to have the same process when it's reposted, where
Yes.
we'll go through.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you. Okay, Resource and Capital Planning Subcommittee. Mr. Kissel.
I've not met, but still reaching out to Bob
Mhm.
on the feasibility study and anything else. We'll just get through this budget stuff and see where we're at.
I've got nothing
Do you
going on.
do you have any updates on the feasibility, anything with that?
Yes, quickly, Mr. DeLuca has very recently sent a draft, but I have been engaged in budgetary matters and haven't been able to give my full attention to that. But as Mr. Kissel says, it's on deck.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, any questions for Resource? Next up, Student Service and Achievement. Ms. Crowley.
We have not met.
Okay. And anything else for any of the subcommittees before we move on to correspondence? Correspondence. Anybody have any correspondence?
Yeah, I'll mention.
Kiss.
Two things, actually, it just was brought to my attention. On May 6th, it's probably going to be more an official announcement, just give people some heads up. At 9 o'clock at the Lynn Scott, the book room that was going to be named.
Mhm.
So that should be coming out.
Yep.
I think Mr. Wells mentioned he will send it out, at least through the chair or the administration, to get it out to us,
Yep.
whoever wants to go. I did have a couple of people ask me, could be completely wrong, so I'm just going to throw it out there. The resource officer up the high school, are they stationed inside anymore, or is it changed a little bit? I just heard some different stories.
I'm not aware of any changes.
Okay. Maybe I'll look into it a different way. Just I didn't know if it was a quick answer here. All right. I was just told that they weren't going to be in the school, they had to be staying outside more or something like that. I'll look into it.
Well, you can ask the you don't really have to look into it. We can just ask the administration to.
I'm happy to explore it
report
for
back.
you.
That's fine. I appreciate it. I don't mind it.
Yes, give them something to do.
Well, no, I think we'll try to avoid that kind of activity. Okay.
Gotcha.
Any other correspondence? Okay, future agenda items. The budget, okay, we're reading. One thing I do, would like, to see if we can kind of explore, how many students are we actually capturing? I think that's the term they use, that are eligible to come to Woburn schools, public schools, that do come, as opposed to go elsewhere. I noticed there was some thing on the chat, the school committee chat thing, and I think that's where I saw it. And they were talking about some communities, and that's an early warning indicator that you may have issues in your schools if you're not attracting the, as many students as you had in the past, so something like that.
You mean the MASC listserv?
Yeah.
Not that we have a chat.
Yeah, I meant the MASC thing. Thank you for
give that impression.
translating my faulty English. Thank you.
There was a conversation previously about the new principal at the Linscott coming to chat with us.
Yeah.
So we have her queued up for May 10th.
Yep.
Excellent.
Yep. But she has already, she's already started to visit a lot at the Linscott. She's involved in hiring with Mr. Wells, and then she confirmed for May 10th.
Okay. Great.
Yes.
Okay.
Very excited to be here.
Okay, so next up is executive session. The school committee does have to go into executive session this evening to discuss negotiations of a non-union with a non-union personnel. And so if I could have a motion.
I'll move that we go into executive session for the reasons stated by the chair.
Second.
A roll call, please.
Ms. Chisholm.
Yes.
Ms. Cormier.
In favor.
Ms. Crowley.
Yes.
Mr. Kissel.
Yes.
Mr. Lipset.
Yes.
Mr. Mulrennan.
Yes.
Dr. Wells.
Yes. So the school committee is going to go into executive session. We'll come out of executive session, announce any votes, and then we'll adjourn. Okay, thank you.